Today is an important day for my workbench construction. I have finalized marking out, well, today I'm going to cut the mortises in the first set of table legs for my workbench. And here is one of the table legs. It's a laminated piece of wood. I cut these out of those, as I've shown you before, I've cut these out of big pieces of construction lumber, planed them down, glued them together. I've marked them where they go, and now I've laid out where the mortise is going to go. I did it wrong the first time, my layout. I did it wrong the second time. This is my third time. For you've heard the saying, measure twice, cut once. Well, this time I've had to do it 3 times. This is very complicated. I've been watching these guys on YouTube that they're craftsmen, they're masters, and they just knock these things out like nobody's business. But it is a real challenge, let me tell you. So now what I've got to do, and I've got these laid out, so there's going to be, let me grab a couple of pieces of wood. So the way this is going to work is I have 2 rails that one is going to go here. The other one is going to go there. And the rails will be attached to the leg with a mortise, a hole in this, and then a tenon that I'm going to cut out of these pieces. So these pieces are going to insert into the leg, and the same thing is going to be on these with this leg. So in the end, let's see if I can do this without knocking everything down. There's going to be a leg up here. That's kind of how it's going to look. So that's good. This is going to be one end. That's going to be one end of the legs. So this is this will be 2 of the 4 legs, and they're connected with these rails, and those are connected together with a mortise and tenon joint. This appears off because these are going to poke through. This one is going to protrude through there. So I've spent hours preparing these pieces, measuring, cutting, planing, practicing. I've practiced a bunch of these with scrap pieces of wood, cutting mortise and tenons. I've spent a lot of time laying these out. If you see all these little horizontal or these parallel lines, those are like training wheels for me, so that I can make sure that as I chop, I will do so in a parallel fashion, and hopefully do a neat job in cutting out this mortise. So I've got these to do. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 2 more legs, 8 of these to cut out, 8 tenons. Everything has to be square and correct. It's a real challenge. The guys on YouTube make it look so easy, but let me tell you, it has been quite a journey just to get to this point. So now I'm gonna set this up so that you all can watch me chop this out. here goes. No, this is my tribble. It's been a little breezy here in the garage, so I put the wind protector on the microphone that I'm using. All right, here we go. This is the deal, the real deal. Let's get this show on the road. Spent about an hour this morning preparing my chisel. This is a new chisel. I had done some work on it. Got to make sure I'm parallel and perpendicular, and I am not. And in the time it has now taken me to do about 5 whacks here, Paul Sellers would probably have half of this mortise cut out. It goes quicker after you get going, but the first part is slow. Now, some things I've learned is the bevel. Let me check that. That's pretty good. Yeah, the bevel. So I'm having a tendency to go that way. I've got to get more this way. So the bevel goes in the direction of your travel, and that's important. And then I'm staying away from the very end until I get a little further down. Okay, so let me see what I can do to go in, and there we go. I'm not as confident as these masters are, and so I don't hit it as hard as they do. Now, some people are going to say, well, you got to hold the hammer like that. Well, that's not how you hold a wood hammer. The reason that you have a long handle on a chisel hammer is it gives balance. You want that handle there for balance. That's different from a framing hammer, which you need to learn how to hold at the end. And really, I'm going to stand up. I'm going to try something here. There, that holds it down. Now I've got a small, so here's the wide chisel. That's a 3/4 inch chisel. This is what I'm using to chop the hole. This is a 1/2 inch chisel, and I'm using that to help scrape out the waste. This is going to be a lot easier when I get my workbench built, because my workbench is going to be at a level that's easier for me to work on. This is quite a journey to learn how to do this, and I'm still not good at it. This is not going to be perfect, I guarantee you, but it's not going to be horrible either. I mean, just learning how to line this stuff up so that you don't screw up your wood. You know, you spend so much time preparing this leg, and then you got to cut these mortises. Well, you don't want to screw up you don't want to screw it up. This southern yellow pine is, even though it's considered a soft wood, it's pretty hard wood. It's dense. It's about 45 pounds per cubic foot. This is the leap of faith moment where I'm trusting that I've practiced enough to be able to get in here and start really getting the bench to go together. This is a big deal. To get to the point where you have the confidence to start chopping up the piece of the leg that you spent so many hours. You think, oh yeah, it's just a leg, it's a couple of pieces of wood glued together. Well, you might think that, but I can assure you it's more than that. Of course, you take a guy like Paul Sellers, he's in his 70s and he's been doing this for close to 60 years. It's been his profession. And I've been doing this for about a month and a half, really, or less. After Christmas, I thought, yeah, I want to start doing some woodworking. So I went out and spent a bunch of money on power tools. I discovered I like this a lot better. This is much more relaxing. Once I get this first row done, it makes it easier because once the hole is going, then you kind of have a place for your chisel to go without you worrying about you screwing it up. Of course, you need to have a good sharp chisel. I guess I'm a little bit brave filming my very first one. A lot of these guys you watch that, I've watched a lot of videos, and they'll show you the last one they did. Well, I'm showing you the first one. The first non-practice mortise. All the others I've done are practice mortises. This gives me learning this has given me a respect for. Now when I see an old piece of furniture, an antique piece of furniture, I'm like, holy cow. These guys built that stuff by hand. Now some people would say, well, I'll get you a mortise chisel. That's a different style of chisel. Well, fair enough, but when you're first starting out, you don't have a shop full of tools. You've just got a few things, and so you get the bare minimum, and that's what you start with. And that's one of the things. Okay, like Rob Cosman, he'll show you how to build a. Rob Cosman's a great guy, and he runs the Purple Heart Project, which is teaching wounded veterans how to do woodworking as part of their therapy, and I think that's a wonderful thing. I can see how. But when he builds his workbench, he's using a workbench to build his workbench. Well, Paul Sellers, he's showing you how to build a workbench, starting with bare minimum stuff. You know, if you're building your first workbench, you don't have a workbench to work from, so you got to work with what you got. And that's what I'm doing. And I know that I'm going to love this workbench when it's done, and there's probably going to be 50 things on it that I want to change. Okay, that's my start. Now I haven't, okay, a couple of things here. One is when you're cutting your mortise, you want your walls to be nice, clean, and straight. And so you kind of wait a little bit before you do the two end walls. I'm going to do one more here before I go any further, closer to the, and there we go. Now I'm going to chop in. I want to get this down a little bit so that this end wall has the waste material has a place to go. So now I'm going to start working back. So what I'm doing, I'm trying to make sure I'm perpendicular and you know, parallel, and keeping everything straight. And of course, if I totally screw this up, it won't be the end of the day. I just got to make me a new leg, which kind of would not be fun, but I would do it because I already remade one of the legs that I didn't do a good job with. It was the first one I made. I made so many mistakes. I just said, you know what, the leg of your workbench is pretty important. So I decided to, see, now I'm starting to take out bigger chunks. Let's see how far down that is. Yeah, I mean, I'm down ½ inch. Yeah. If you go watch Paul Sellers or Rob Cosman do this, they practically have this done by now. I really admire their abilities. Now, you could use a machine. There are machines that there's I guess it goes on a drill bit or drill press. You can probably use a router. But I'm doing it the old-fashioned way. You can't take too much of a bite. Otherwise, you can't lever out the... I might have taken too much of a bite there as I was saying that. You got to be able to lever out the wood. It's funny, at first the progress is like really slow. And then as you get in there, you can start taking out bigger pieces. I'm still struggling a bit on the very ends, you know, down here, getting that just right. There are so many details that you have to pay attention to. So now I feel like I'm starting to make some decent progress. See, I'm cutting out big pieces like that. Let's clean some of this out. Let's see how I'm doing. Being careful not to mess up any of my sides. You need the faces of the mortise to be straight and true and square, because that's what you end up gluing to. Here, let me dump this out. Clear off the table. You know, the nice thing about using hand tools, it's peaceful, it's quiet. See, I gotta come in from that side in a minute. There we go. So, see, I'm making progress. All right, let's get this thing clamped back. You know, another thing is that these sawhorses are pretty good, but they do have some flexibility, and so you lose a little bit. You lose a little bit on your... So right there, I'm down, 3/4 of an inch. Start working our way back. That's a tough spot right there. Well, I did what I didn't want to do. I got off my line a little bit. It's so easy to do that. Not the end of the day. But it's gonna show. It'll show. It is definitely gonna show. Okay, now I'm gonna hit my line. Okay, this is important. Get it right there on my cut line. I've got a knife wall that I started. Right there. Okay, now I'm going to go straight down. This is critical. And I can't lever that way. I have to lever this way. There we go. Okay. See, I don't want to bend my chisel or mess up the wall. Not taking off too big a bite there. I don't know. We'll see. Once you get going, the walls kind of help guide you. I can feel my chisel trying to twist. There's probably a knot in there. Yeah, I'm hitting a knot. That's the other thing. Wood is far from a homogeneous material. So you've got all these variations that mess with you. The nice thing about hand tools is they don't create a lot of dust, they don't create noise. You might cut yourself, but you're probably not going to end up going to the emergency room or losing fingers or a hand. First couple of weeks, I was using a lot of Band-Aids, I'll say that. That felt good, hitting my thumb with the hammer. Now the other challenge is that once you get your mortises cut, of course you got to design your mortise to the size of the tenon you're going to build. Once you got your mortise built, you got to cut your tenons, and your tenons have to be cut right because they got to fit into your mortise. Not too tight, and they can't be loose. Be careful as I'm getting close to this wall right here. There's my line, but I got to get down a bit more before I take on that line. So I'm going to see now I've got the bevel. I'm going to keep the bevel in the vertical position so that it kind of pushes things that way. And it really does happen the way it's designed to. There we go. Now, okay, so I'm going to put it on the knife wall. It's a critical part. And get everything lined up right. It's quite inspiring to watch these master craftsmen. They just know how to do this so well. It's impressive. That's not bad, what I did there. I'm not unhappy with that. Let's get rid of some of this waste. See all that coming out? Oh, I made a mention to the tribbles earlier. For those of you that don't know what a tribble is, that dates back to Star Trek. The original Star Trek. One of the more lighthearted shows of the day, or of the series, I would say. They had these little furry critters that got onto the ship. Oh, I can't believe I did that. Oh, you know what I did? I just dropped my chisel on the floor. You hate doing that. I just earned myself about half hour's worth of work at the sharpening bench. Fortunately, that's not the one I'm using to cut, but I'll have to go back and resharpen that because it hit the end. Let's dump this out. See? It's coming down. Okay. I know there's a knot in there because every time I get to that spot, the chisel wants to twist on me. I don't know if you can see this grain right here. That is where there was a branch growing out, and that thing must be going down like that. And that's what's causing that change. That wood grain wants to go in a different direction around here. And then as soon as I get away from this little area, it gets straight again. It doesn't try to twist on me. I learned something when I bought this set of chisels. They're brand new. what you discover, yes, you can use, you discover, yes, that you can use chisels right out of the box, but they are not correct. They are not square, nor are they as sharp as they need to be. And you're going to have to probably spend an hour per chisel, at least I have, to get them set up right. But that's part of the learning, how to do your tools. I'm about through this first piece. That is, there's two pieces here, and I'm getting down. Did I mention that this is not something you do if you're in a hurry? Take your time. Okay. So I'm down at this end, and this is where I have to keep that bevel vertical as I cut on that wall, because I don't want to mess that part up, and I don't want to mess that part up. There we go. That's pretty good. Now, okay, I'm right up against my knife wall. Got perpendicular and go down. But do not lever against the wall. The ends are hard to do. The very ends. That's probably one of the hardest things. Well, laying it out is a lot of work. I mean, it's your learning. It's the learning. There's a like I said, the first time I screwed it up, and the second time I screwed it up, and the third time I got it right. Here, let's dump all that out. This time I'm going to do it without knocking my chisel out. There we go. See? Coming along. Normally I have music going. I put it on Pandora or something. I try to avoid 24-hour news. And I just get out here and I listen to music. But I'm going to post this on YouTube, and it'll have copyright issues if I don't if I play the music that I'm listening to in the garage. I'd have copyright issues. Okay, so you can't lever against that wall. All the time, making sure you're not crooked. You gotta be straight and level. I think I can see the knot down in there. Maybe getting past it. But it sure keeps trying to turn my chisel in this one spot. Just easy does it. The chisels I have are made by Wood River. They're not their top of the line. Of course, everybody would love to have beautiful top dollar tools, but few people can really afford it. Maybe someday when I figure out which ones I use the most, I might spring for a couple of top of the line chisels. But for now, middle of the road is working good for me. You know, I've been buying old planes. The hand planes I bought are all used. Although I did buy a new one that should arrive today, called a shoulder plane, to help me with my tenons. I think I just hit that other piece of wood. Nice thing about doing this kind of woodworking is it gives you time to think about stuff. Think about life. Think about how it's been. Think about the blessings that we have in our lives, the people we know, our loved ones. We all should have blessings. Focus on the positive things in one's life. How blessed we are. To have friends, family, our health. I went to visit a good friend, a radio friend in the hospital. My poor friend Bob, he had a stroke, and he is just in horror. It's just so sad. Kind, gentle man that has, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how to get a hold of his family. And the people at the hospital wouldn't tell me anything. He was sleeping when I went to see him. I think he was sleeping. But he's breathing with a trach tube and being fed. Oh, dang it. See, I let my chisel hit that spot right there. It's not a disaster, but not a desirable thing to do. You check all that. I mean, this is I'm getting down there. Here, I got to just dump it out. Here, let me do this a little bit. Loosen up. See, look at all that. How far down are we? Let's check. So right there. Okay, so yep, I kind of thought so. We're down, see, we're down that far now in some of the spots, not all the way. I'm about ready to turn it over and start that other side. I think I'll make one more pass. I'm going to make one more pass to even it out a little bit. It's not very even. I've got some parts that are much deeper than others. And when I start to break through, the reason I want to do this is when I start to break through, I want it to break through cleanly. There we go. That's getting that wall pretty nicely cleaned up. Okay. Let's do this end as well. Go. These ends are the hardest part. I'm going to make one more pass going on this side, and then I'm going to turn it over and start approaching things from the other side. So I guarantee you, Mr. Sellers, Paul Sellers, go check out his videos, Paul Sellers. Sellers. How to make a mortise and tenon joint. He would have this done. He'd already be working on probably his third one by now. And that's even explaining what he's doing as he goes along. So I'm biting into that next layer of wood deeply. I'm getting in there pretty deep to that next. And that's a good thing, because that's going to help when it breaks through. It should break through pretty cleanly, or I hope it will. Yeah, I'm through that knot. It's not trying to turn my chisel anymore when I get to that spot. So it was definitely a place where there was... That's the things you just discover when you start working with wood the way this is. You don't feel that in a... You don't really feel that in a machine. You don't feel the wood when you're doing machine work. You're doing hand woodworking. It is all, well, you just really feel the wood. I think that's it. I like that part of it. I took too big of a bite there. That's better. Now I'm starting to get into the grain of that other piece, and it's starting to want to, because I'm working with two grains in two different directions. You can feel how the direction of the grain it's changing. I find that interesting. You know, it's springtime right now in Houston. It's a beautiful time of year. It's probably about 82, 83 degrees out today. Been pretty rainy the last few days, but we sure needed it. But with this rain, everything is just bursting out. All the azaleas are blooming. It's a nice time of year in the South. I won't be saying that in a couple of months. Okay, after I get through with this pass, I'm going to turn it over and start from the other side. Okay, I'm going to chop down here. All right, now let's get this cleaned out a little bit. Let's see, how far down are we? See, we're down. See, we're almost, yeah, we're a good 2/3 of the way. Maybe 3/4 of the way through. So part of the trick to laying out your mortise and tenon joints. Okay, so I've got this side started. This is going pretty nice. But you got to start from this other side, and so you got to make sure that all your lines on this side are in exactly this, you know, the square. It has to be all the same. It's got to be the same in the same place on the other opposite face, and so there's little tricks and stuff that you do to get that to happen. All right. Here we go. Now we're starting on this side, and the slow Okay. That's where I'm using my training wheels. I call them training wheels. Actually, Rob Kosman, another guy, C-O-S-M-A-N, Rob Kosman, another good guy to watch. He's the one that showed me how to do this. So I've kind of combined the techniques from two different craftsmen to do my work. We're going to break through in just a couple of minutes. I think as you do this more, you gain a level of confidence. So my first error when I was laying these out, my first error is I didn't properly locate the center line of the mortise. That's the hole I'm cutting right now. So then I had to go back and redo that and get it in the right spot. Well, I had been practicing. See, this is a 3/4 inch mortise hole. I had been practicing with 1/2 inch mortises. And I failed to the mortise that I need for the workbench, just because it's a big, heavy thing. I needed a 3/4 inch mortise. So then I had to go back and redo all the layouts using 3/4. But it is easier to make a hole bigger than it is to make it smaller. But I wanted the beefiness of a 3/4 inch mortise. Or a 3/4 inch tenon, I should say. You know, it's interesting. This side is cutting easier than the other side, and the only reason is it's a different piece of wood. That is the only reason. Like I mentioned, when I started this, I knew I needed these little pieces that, yes, you could cut this. You could make these out of 2x4s. But if you go to the lumber section of your Home Depot or Lowe's or wherever it is you buy your lumber, Menards up in Wisconsin or the Midwest, and the 2x4 studs, because they're smaller pieces of wood, they cut them out of smaller pieces of the tree. And you don't get nice grain, and you get a lot of knots and a a lot of what's called wane, which is the outside, kind of the bark or the outside of the tree. So I bought 2x8s, 2x10s, even some 2x12s, and 16-foot lengths. Let me tell you, 2x12 that's 16 feet long is a honking big piece of wood. But I can get it in my pickup. I open the back window of my pickup, and then I can run it through and then I can rest the back end of the piece on the bed, truck bed gate, tie it down, put a flag on it, and I can get a 16-foot timber home. I mean, I could do it with a 20-foot even, but 20 feet is a little difficult for me to handle, just because it weighs so dang much. I mean, this stuff, 45 pounds a cubic foot. It's one thing to wrestle out a weight that's 75, 80 pounds. It's a whole other thing to wrestle around a weight that's 16 to 20 feet long and weighs 75 pounds. It is surprising how differently this side is cutting than the other. I'm glad I started with that other side. I had no idea. And I have not learned enough to be able to read the wood and know if it's going to, and I don't know if people can do this, but to read the wood in a way that you can say, okay, I want to start on this side, because it's going to be the harder side to do. The other side is going to be easier. So now I'm getting down close to this gauge line. I just discovered something. I did not put a knife wall there, so I have to get a piece of wood out. I'll show you what I got to do. It's not a mess up. I just didn't do something I needed to do to know exactly where to end. This is one I forgot to do. But this is good to be able to show you something. Part of the layout, part of what I'm learning. We're not far from being done with this. Okay. Grab my square. I need my knife. Okay, so I need these ends to be in exactly the same place as these ends. And when I cut these ends, I made a knife. I cut a knife wall there. So what I need to do, okay, so I'm going to put this there. I'm going to put a little notch there. Okay, I got a little notch there, and I need to do the same thing here So I put my knife there. I bring the square up to the knife wall, and then I can put a little cut there. Okay, a little tweak. Now I can transfer this. You think, well, just use a pencil. Well, you think you can until you do this, and then you realize that a pencil is a lot thicker than that knife wall. Okay, so there's my spot there. And there's where my knife goes. And I can put my... Okay, notice that this has a bevel on it, so you always keep the flat side to the square. Okay, so now I can bring this up. Okay, there's my knife wall. Okay. Okay, that's enough for that. There. Just doing that to make it easier for me to cut. I'm not so ambidextrous. Okay, now, since I've transferred this with my square over here, I know that this wall, that knife wall right there, is on the other side is in the exact same spot. And now I got to do the same thing here. So I put my knife into the little notch that I made, tiny little notch, you won't even see it. And now I can okay, so now I know that this knife wall, so that wall right there, is in the exact same spot on the other side. So now everything's going to be lined up just right. I had forgotten to do that on this piece. This. There we go. Remember, I'm keeping, when I get to the end, I got to keep the bevel up. Now I can go straight down on this knife wall. I got to get my edge of the chisel. Gotta get the edge of the chisel. That was my clamp holding my workbench to my sawhorse. Okay. There we go. I am trying to destroy my equipment. Let's get this back on here. This is kind of why Paul Sellers shows you how to build a workbench without having a workbench. I mean, it's like, you know, the guy that says, what was it, Steve Martin? He says, I'm going to teach you how to make $1 million. First, start with $1 million. Yeah, well, not everybody has $1 million to start with. Same way with the workbench. Okay. Now it's time to go chop, chop, chop. So when I get my legs built and everything done, then I can mount my worktop, which is what I'm working on. That's this thing. I can mount it on my legs the workbench won't be finished, but I'll have a much better place to work. Coming along. Oh, I felt it break through. We're almost there. Yep, there, the center part. It's funny, the center part, you always kind of get deeper in the center than you do on the two ends. I guess just the nature of how this goes. Nature of how you cut. When you get to the breakout, things start twisting around as well. Okay, we're getting close. In fact, it's broken out there. Let me, ouch. We're about to go through. Yeah. We are about to bust out. Break on through to the other side. Hey, I wonder if somebody could write a song about that. Or maybe they already did. proper technique right there. This is proper technique. I'm cutting through to the other side here. Okay, get right on that knife wall. Perpendicular. Straight down. I'll take a look at that other side. I'm going to show you a hole in a minute. You want to be careful not to mess up your nice workbench by jamming your chisel down into it from coming from this side. Let's see, I think I can put this right. Now I'm going to do one more. I'm not quite ready to take that wall on yet. There we go. Now let's see what I can do here. Put this chisel right on that knife wall. I think I'm trying to take too much. I know I am, and I'm just messing that up. So I get my bevel vertical. And of course, this is a workbench, so, you know, I'm going to make some mistakes building it because I'm just learning. And it is a workbench. Okay, let's check it out. There you go. Check it out. Not too bad. Now you don't want to make it any bigger, but you do want to clean it up just a little bit. So I think what I'm going to do, there we go. So the reason that you make it the size of the chisel, so you can set up your marking gauges, and this is how big the hole is. Okay, there you go. There you have it. Not only is this the 5th mortise that I've ever made, it is the first one. I'm not going to clean that up too much. You want all that to be able to latch on to your tenon. So there you go. Mortise number 1. I've only got 7 more to go. But hey, it's a start. Not too bad. I think I'm pretty happy with that.